Lee had been dating her boyfriend, Jason, for only a few months when he all of a sudden suggested that they should move across the country to Albuquerque, New Mexico, so that Lee could write a novel and he would work to support them. And when Jason made this suggestion, Lee thought that this was the most romantic thing that anyone had ever said to her. And she was really impressed. She said, Jason, this is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. All right, so let's get a few things straight. Lee is spelled like that, and she's a girl. All right? Jason is her boyfriend. Lee, at this point, is 22 years old. Jason is 19. He's 3 years younger. They've been dating for a couple of months, and they're living in Illinois, which is a state, and the largest city in Illinois is Chicago. And we talked about Chicago last week a little, right, the airport. So Chicago is over here. So they both live here. Lee lives with her parents in the suburbs, right, the houses around Chicago, the residential neighborhood. And they're dating, and at one point, Jason suggests that they should move to Albuquerque, which is spelled like this. You can't spell it, it's horrible. Which is in New Mexico, which is over here, right? This is Albuquerque, this is New Mexico, and it's across the country. It's a long way. And Lee is really impressed and excited because she's 22 and she's excited about like starting a new life, right? And moving across the country. And Lee went to college when she was 18, but then she dropped out, right? She decided to quit. And now she's 22 and she regrets that decision. And she's thinking of going back to college. So she's been saving for a couple of years, and she has saved some money. But when Jason suggests moving to Albuquerque, Lee agrees, and she uses all of that money to pay for a truck to move all their stuff to Albuquerque, right? And she also has to pay the security deposit on an apartment, right? Because they rent an apartment over the internet in Albuquerque, but you have to pay a security deposit, like the first payment, right? So she uses all of the money that she has saved to go back to college, to move with her boyfriend to Albuquerque, and she and her boyfriend have only been together for a couple of months. One thing that Lee chose to ignore is the fact that Jason has been fired from every job he's ever had, right? And that is a huge red flag. Do you remember red flags? Like a red flag is something, when you see it, you're like, uh-oh, I should be really careful. So with Jason, there's a lot of red flags. Like one of them is every job he's ever had, he's been fired from. But Lee is in love, and she's like, yeah, it'll be fine. You know, once we get to New Mexico, things will be different. You know, Jason will change, and we will be a wonderful couple. And Jason is really good at making promises. So he promises to support both of them so that Lee can write a book, because that's her dream, right? She wants to write a novel, a big book. And he's like, yeah, honey, don't worry. I'm going to work. I'm going to get a job, and you will be able to write that book. And she's like, that's wonderful. And he also promised to teach her how to drive stick. And I don't know if you know what this means. In America, cars in America are different from cars in Europe in that they have an automatic transmission system, right? It's automatic. You don't have to change gears, right? In Europe, most cars drive stick, right? You have a stick and you change gears. And Jason is a big fan of cars, and he has a car that has a stick. And he's like, I'm going to teach you how to do that. It's so cool to be able to drive stick. And she's like, oh, that's wonderful. So they get to Albuquerque. He forgets about it. He never teaches her how to drive stick. As soon as they get to New Mexico, it becomes clear that Jason is not very good at holding down a job. So whenever he gets hired, he gets fired immediately because he's lazy and incompetent. So it turns out that he's horrible at holding down a job. But it also turns out that Lee is really, really good at working and holding down a job. So she gets a job. She's really good at it. She makes good money. She gets a job working at a diner. All right, a diner is different from a dinner, right? A diner is a small restaurant, right? It's a place where you go to eat. So there's this small diner in Albuquerque, a walking distance from their apartment, right? That hires Lee. And once she starts working there, she finds out that this diner is not an ordinary diner. Okay, this is getting to be a little long, right? But bear with me for just a while. In the 1940s, during the Second World War, in the early 1940s, the United States government decided that the only way to end the war was by building a nuclear bomb, right? They realized that in order to defeat Japan, they had to have a nuclear bomb and drop it on Japan. So they gathered the best scientists in the world, and they built a huge laboratory for them in New Mexico, about 60 kilometers from Albuquerque, in a place called Los Alamos, right? And the best scientists of the time worked there, like Robert Oppenheimer. Einstein didn't, I think, work there, but he helped somehow. And so they built a nuclear bomb, which was later dropped on Hiroshima. And the scientists in the 1940s, they would finish work every day, and they would get into a car, and they would drive to Albuquerque to a diner which served the best green chili cheeseburgers in the world.